So that's what we're going to fix today. Torn CV boots. So first we're going to do is take the wheel off. Then we're going to take this hub apart, and I think there's a snap ring and a nut, and then we can get the hub off. Yeah, or we may not have to take the hub off. Probably will anyway, just to repack the bearings, but we'll see what it looks like once we get into it. I have a feeling the bearings are going to be nasty and the grease is going to be all dried up. So we'll probably just go ahead and do all that when we've got it apart. But let's go ahead and start tearing into it. Alright, just a little update. I've gotten this far. Once I got that cap off with those 6 bolts, then I got down to this level, and it had this little snap ring and some shims. Once I got that snap ring off, this piece of the hub came off, which revealed this. This is a locking ring. It goes in a notch. There's a nut behind it that has screw holes in it. So you take these 3 screws out, this locking plate comes off, and then you can unscrew the nut. If you're just doing the axle shaft, you can stop at this point as far as tearing the hub down. I think this grease looks so nasty. I think I'm going to go ahead and tear down into it further so I can get the hub off and be able to grease the bearings. If you're in it this far, you might as well do it. But if you don't want to, you can stop at this point. You can get the CV shaft out. Well, once you get the ball joints off. But I'm going to keep tearing into it and pull the hub off. So let me tear into it further. Oh, and I also took the caliper off. Just 2 17mm bolts that bolt in right there. So let's get this finished up. Okay, so here's where we are right now. Top ball joint's broken loose. Took the nut off, whacked it with a hammer, broke the little conical whatever, and conical seat or whatever, and it popped out. Then I did the same thing to the bottom, got it out, but I can't get the ball joint out. I'd have to unbolt the ball joint. Really don't want to unbolt the ball joint, so I'm going to try to get this out without taking the ball joint off. If that's possible, then you don't even have to take the nut off the bottom ball joint. Well, you might have to, because it did give us a little more wiggle room. But in this boot, there's a little clip on the outer edge of this cup that has to come out, and then once that's out, it'll pull out of there. So I'm hoping I can do that, get it out of that cup, and then pull the shaft out, maybe up through here or whatever. And I have done this without taking the tie rod off. I may have to take it off. I'm going to try not to, though. So let's see if we can do it. It's out. So that's the aftermath. I ended up taking the tie rod off. It was just easier. It was getting in the way, and it took like 2 seconds to get it off. While I've got all this out, I'm probably going to go ahead and grease this ball joint. It's kind of hard to get to. No, won't put a lot in it, but just enough in it. What I ended up doing, I took that C-clip out. I could not get it slipped out enough to go. What I was able to do was slip it in, which pulled it out here. This big hub was keeping this ball joint from being able to drop out of the spindle. Once I was able to slide this in all the way with the hub pulled out, so it'd make the axle short, it then allowed it to, this shaft pulled out of the hub to where this part now was where the ball joint is, which gave it enough room to slip it out of the hub. And so once the tie rod was off, the hub slipped off, and we were able to then pull the shaft out. So easiest thing is just to go ahead and undo the tie rod, undo both ball joints, slip that up all the way in the cup, which will allow you to slip the ball joint or the hub out of the ball joint, and then just pull the hub off. So when you go back together with this, there is a needle bearing right in there that the shaft spins on when it's in four-wheel drive. Do not forget to grease that bearing, that little needle bearing. And check it, make sure it's good, because there's a seal right here. If this seal's bad, it'll allow water in and it'll get to that bearing. It's the first bearing there. So let's get this all cleaned up. We'll have to undo these clamps and put this thing in a bucket of cleaner and get this thing all cleaned up. Okay, so on the inner cup side, there's a little snap ring, or the inner joint. There's a snap ring, and then that CV joint part will come off, and that's how you get the boots on and off. I'm actually not sure how this part comes apart. Yeah, I don't know. So we leave that part together. I'm sure there's some way to get it apart, but I don't know. It may be that this part is pressed in or something. But I've done these quite a few times, and I've never done. Well, I say quite a few times. I've done them. Maybe 2 or 3 times on my other truck. I've never taken this apart. What I do is I just, I've actually been cleaning with gas, and then the last round I used brake cleaner, but to get all the gas out and so it evaporate, and then I blew it out. I just keep cleaning the thing out. Use a brush, all you can get, and screwdriver to pick out the tough stuff, and then just keep putting gas in the joint, working the joint all around, so that it's moving, those balls are moving all around, you know, just with it sitting up like that. It's dry now, so it won't really move much, very easy, but just keep moving it all around, and that kind of gets it all cleaned out. And I keep doing that until when I pour the gas out, you know, so I'll do that, pour the gas out, gas is dirty, do it again, keep doing that until when I pour the gas out it's clean. Then I hold the joint upside down, spray it with brake cleaner, and blow it out, and that seems to get them all cleaned out. This one, like I said, when the boot was, when I noticed it was torn, I tried to keep from using the truck in four-wheel drive. Tried to keep that boot from turning, tried to keep it as much junk out of there as I could, and I think that helped it. It wasn't actually, I mean, it was kind of nasty, but it wasn't too bad. There was still some good grease down in there. The inner one, the boot was still good, but the band clamp, the CV boot clamp for the one that went on the cup had broke, and so but the grease and everything looked fine. No, it didn't look like anything got in it. I didn't get any water or anything. The boot was still up on the cup, it just wasn't clamped on, and that side was really clean, so it didn't take much cleaning up. I still need to get a rag and wipe out the inner cup, but we're about ready to start putting things back together. So before you put any of this on, you need to assemble this one. So I'll get my boot for this side. We'll shove some grease all up in here. The boots came with grease. Get that all greased up real good to where it's rotating real good, and slip the boot on. So I've kind of worked the grease all in the joint. You can see how free it moves now. I just would push it over to one side, squeeze some grease in, did that on all the balls and the inner socket or whatever you want to call it, and got that all good. So now we'll slip the boot on and squeeze the rest of the grease into the boot. Okay, so these clamps are kind of universal. You just got to make sure you get them in the right notch, just where they fit pretty snug around the boot. And then I've actually got a CV boot crimper, clamp thing, whatever. If you don't have one, you can use some of these pliers like this. You just be careful not to squeeze it too much. You don't want to cut the clamp. So I've got this one clamped. It's good and tight. It's about the perfect tightness. It's not digging into the boot too much, but it's holding it firmly on there. Before we tighten this one down, we want to rotate the boot all around, make sure it's not full of air, and then we'll clamp it. And there's grooves for where the clamp goes. See, the clamp surface of the boot goes in the groove. And there's one on this end too. Now we just take our pliers. I'm gonna have both hands for this. And that end is done. So we'll finish cleaning up that other joint, slip it on, put the snap ring back in, and then clean out that socket and put some grease in the socket, slip the joint back in, or slip the boot on first, then put the CV joint on. So let's get that done. Alright, so we've got some grease on there, the rest will go in the boot. I got the cup cleaned out, smeared some grease in there. So now we can slip it all back in there. And don't forget your little, this is the little snap ring that holds the, it goes on, there's a little cut in this, right in there, and it fits in there. So before you put your boot on, make sure you put that in. Alright, CV boots are in, or the CV axle. It's in good shape. So next I just need to clean up my hubs and bearings and put it all back together just like it came off. So I'll probably show y'all an update once I get done, but I'm probably not going to have the camera on while I'm doing all this.